I know some of you, though, are thinking, what the heck is the Attorney General doing at this event? He's just not that cool.
We love you, Sean.
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. Love you, too. And he's a politician on top of that, but I promise I will not be talking about politics today, except to give you a definition of politics. The root word, the etymology, is poly, from the word meaning many, and ticks, from the word ticks, like blood-sucking little insects. So there you go. I'll admit, I may not be the typical TEDx speaker. I don't have a company that I just sold to Google for $1 billion. I don't have a PhD in electromagnetic propulsion or information management. I haven't had an out-of-body experience where the answers to some mysteries of physics have manifested themselves to me, and I am certainly not a celebrity. But, on the other hand, I've invested in a lot of tech companies. I love to speak at Comic-Cons because in that world, anything is possible. I used to fight mixed martial arts, and so when I was recovering the next day from fights, I often felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. And while not a celebrity, I have had a YouTube video that's garnered some attention, some hits. You can look it up. It is the rapping AG, the devastating, innovating, rhyming AG, repping 801 Utah SLC. That one. Don't waste your time trying to challenge me because I'll knock you out. You're Frazier, I'm Ali. Yes, Ali, a.k.a. Cassius Clay. You want to take my title, best step away, because I'm a political powerhouse every day. Feeling lucky? Go ahead and make my day. Something like that. But anyway, you'll see. I am not the typical TED speaker, but I'm here, and I want to talk about the subject they gave me, shape. Shape as in a form or the act of forming to shape. And standing here in the shadows of the majestic Wasatch Mountain Range, it is amazing to me how much the very presence of these mountains shapes the culture and environment of this valley. They shape not only the topography, quite literally, but also the economy, transportation, and very lifestyle of this community. In fact, I've heard these mountains referred to as natural monuments. And like other monuments, merely looking upon them can be inspirational, connecting us to a deeper meaning, giving one sense of an identity. Importantly, they also provide orientation and perspective. For those who live here, how many times have you been lost? Not metaphysically, but geographically. Just driving around and you look up and see those are the mountains, that's east, and you get your bearings. Well, if you accept my definition of a monument in terms of something that inspires you or gives you direction, then the temples that dot this state are monuments to me spiritually and have shaped me by what I've learned inside them. The family portrait in my office becomes a monument to my parents and to my wife and children, who are themselves living monuments that shape my life every day. The Constitution of the United States and of Utah are monuments to freedom, liberty, and the laws that I defend as the Attorney General. Recently, I was asked in an interview, what are the influences that have most shaped you and your leadership style? I was also asked, as the first minority statewide elected official in Utah, how has my diverse background influenced my role in office? You know, upon reflection, I realized that the answers to both of those questions are interconnected by certain monuments of my own ancestry. And what do I mean by that? For those of you who know me, you know I'm very proud to be American. But part of being American is embracing the rich traditions of my heritage. And I've got a few of them. Spanish and Filipino on my dad's side, Native Hawaiian and Japanese on my mom's. The stories and spirit of these various cultures are monuments to me. They give me direction and identity and inform my view of what real leadership truly is. Certainly, I do not intend to imply that these cultures have any sort of monopoly on particular traits or virtues, but they've inspired in me ideals and principles that shape how I attempt to fulfill my own leadership role. Let me illustrate first with the monuments bequeathed to me from my father's side of the family in the Philippines. One of the most beloved presidents of the Philippines was Ramon Magsaysay, a war hero, defender of democracy, and Time Magazine Man of the Year who served in the late 1950s. Magsaysay was my grandfather's first cousin, but more like a brother. They had grown up together, raised their families together. He was my father's godfather, and Dad affectionately called him Uncle Ramon. Magsaysay had been a blue-collar mechanic before ascending to the presidency, and so he could understand the plight of the less fortunate. In spite of leading one of the strongest economies in Philippine history, Magsaysay opened up Malacañang Palace, the Filipino White House, to peasants, the poor and downtrodden, so they could make requests for bridges, roads, irrigation, or other needs. They would line up by the hundreds, even thousands on most mornings to bring fruits in a basket or a live chicken to their hero, the president. It was on one of these days that an assassin, posing as a farmer with a gun in his fruit basket, took his place in line with the mission to kill the president. This hardened assassin had been trained by a communist insurgency group for years to carry out this one sole objective. Nothing would deter him, or so he thought. When his turn came to meet with the president and he got closer, he could hear Magsaysay speak with such compassion and respect to these peasants. The assassin later said he had never had or felt such love from one man for another, and knew, despite significant political differences, that he could not kill him because Magsaysay was the best chance for helping all Filipinos. When he arrived at the front of the line, the assassin knelt before the president, tipping over his basket to reveal his gun, confessed his part in the plot, and asked only to be killed quickly. The palace guards were more than happy to oblige, but the president stopped them and asked the man if he would be willing to pledge his loyalty to him. The assassin said he would. Magsaysay asked him to stand and join his security detail. And from that day forward, the assassin always remained loyal to him. Even after the president died in a plane crash, for many years until his own death, the would-be assassin that they called Manila Boy continued to drive my Auntie Luz, the former First Lady, and protect our family. Now, there's some different versions of this story. I chose to share the one that the president told his godson, my father. But all of the versions are consistent in highlighting Magsaysay's love and compassion for the people. Today, we seldom speak of love, unless it is romantic love, especially in the media. Rarely will you hear love discussed in the boardroom, classroom, or on the floor of the legislature. In many circles, especially those promoting success at all costs, love is a word of softness and weakness. But love is a monument to shape true leaders. Magsaysay's love for those he served was his greatest attribute and his greatest weapon. This kind of love, this kind of authenticity, sacrifice, and caring is transformative and disarming. It can unify the strongest political enemies and transcend ideological divides. Even as one of the most beloved leaders in Philippine history, not everyone agreed with Magsaysay's policies and decisions, but the love he demonstrated they could never dispute. As we in the AG's office continue to serve the people of Utah, of all backgrounds, my hope is that we can do it with the love that Magsaysay embodied. The best leaders, whether they be in business, public service, or education, care more about their people than anything else. They take the time to know their students, their employees, their constituents. They listen and care as Magsaysay did, and they're willing to do anything, legally and ethically, to serve and protect their people. And when it comes to dealing with others, many evils of our day, many conflicts might be overcome if we approached each other with the respect and love that Magsaysay had even for his enemies, and in spite of legitimate differences, as brothers and sisters in an international family. Now, turning to my Spanish roots, I've always been inspired by the stories, admittedly probably legends, of El Cid. His real name was Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, of Castilian nobility, born in the 11th century. His countrymen called him campeador, or champion, because he never lost a battle and fought with such bravery against astounding odds. He arose in the court of King Ferdinand the Great of Castile and led Castilian armies, Ferdinand's son, King Sancho, to numerous victories. But when Sancho was slain and his brother Alfonso attained the crown, El Cid would not pledge his fealty until the new king swore a public oath that he had not killed his brother to usurp the throne. Angered by El Cid's integrity and challenge, the new king ultimately banished his famous general. Such a fine leader was El Cid, though, that hundreds of noblemen and knights forsook their titles and lands to follow him into exile. And for years, from a humble camp in the woods, El Cid and his knights protected several regions of Spain from invaders, including the Kingdom of Castile. In spite of the injustice of exile, knowing Castile could not survive without his help, El Cid humbly came to the defense of his homeland again and again without compensation or restoration of his title, simply because he felt it was his duty to protect those he had sworn to defend in Castile. We have spent my entire administration trying to bring integrity back to the highest levels of the AG's office. And that's my vision, to have the integrity of El Cid, so that we continue to make decisions not based on political expediency or personal advantage, but under what's right under the law. And like El Cid, we may have to speak to power, challenge the king, or make decisions that are unpopular in the pursuit of our duty and the law. Let me turn now, after that monument from Spain to leadership, to my mother's side of the family. And she grew up on the Big Island of Hawaii, and there in Hawaii, I was regaled with stories of King Kamehameha the Great. But I want to tell you a story not about Kamehameha's great wisdom and strength and bravery, but a different one of unity and purpose. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a giant eel called the Great Puhi. And the Great Puhi saw a young sister and brother playing in the shore. The Puhi struck, dragging the young boy to the bottom of the ocean and into a magic cave. The sister dove after them, but could not save her poor brother. The giant Puhi was too big and too strong and guarded the cave very closely. The girl turned to the sea creatures for help. "Please help me. Please help me save my brother," she cried. Along came a powerful shark, but once the girl explained what had happened, the shark said, "The Great Puhi? I cannot fight him. He's too strong." The same thing happened with a mighty whale, a stingray, an octopus, and other sea creatures, until finally the girl gave up and began to cry again. All of a sudden, two small limpets heard her crying. Now, limpets are tiny sea creatures with shells that cling to the rocks. In Hawaii, they're black and called opihi, and we love to eat them, but not in this story. The two opihi spoke to the girl and said, "Please stop crying. We will help you." "No offense," said the sister, "but how can you help when you're just small, slow, and not very strong opihi?" "We will show you what we can do," they confidently replied, and let go of the rocks. So down the opihi went. They latched onto the puhi's tail, made their way up until they slid over the puhi's eyes and blinded him, giving the sister a chance to swim down and take her brother back home safely. A cute story, yes. A tall tale, of course. But these lessons from my Hawaiian roots provide another ancestral monument to good leadership. A good leader understands that whether you're a king like Kamehameha or the smallest opihi, you can display courage and with unity and teamwork make a difference. Courage means you don't shy away from difficult tasks, regardless of the odds. Unity means we emphasize in our office everyone is a key contributor, from the executive team down to the summer interns. If one person fails, we all do. We work together to win, and any success is the team's. Everyone has an important purpose. In fact, I regularly have conversations in English, but often in Spanish, with the janitorial staff that cleans our office in the state capitol. The first time I spoke to them, they were so surprised and taken aback. They said, "No one really talks to us. We just clean here." But I've explained to them that they too are an integral part of our team. I've thanked them for what they do, encouraged them to keep doing their best, because dedication in any job rubs off on the entire team. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "If it falls to you to be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures, like Beethoven composed music, like Shakespeare wrote poetry." Really good leaders, successful leaders, empower their people. They keep them united. They give them purpose, and they inspire them to believe not just in themselves, but in the team. And that is the leadership monument that has shaped me most from my Hawaiian culture. Finally, let me share from my mom's Japanese lineage. Our ancestors were the feudal lords of the ancient Maeda clan, those who built Kanazawa Castle and its city, the capital of Ishikawa Prefecture. The Maeda lords and samurais were renowned for heroism on the battlefield, but the Maedas were more acclaimed for their patronage of the arts and culture. Such was the way of the warrior, or Bushido, a code of ethics and living that emphasized not only strength in battle, but spiritual strength and honor in everything. So powerful was the commitment to Bushido that a samurai's life was easily given if it meant protecting one's own honor or the preservation of another's. The Bushido honor That type of honor was displayed in the 1940s by the Fighting 442nd U.S. Combat Regiment, the most decorated military unit in American history. Now, that unit was made up of American citizens of Japanese descent, almost all of whom came from families who were interned in relocation camps by the government, due solely to their heritage. Most of these families had businesses that they had built up, had investments that they had made confiscated by their own government, again, just because of their ancestry. This military unit was called the Go for Broke Battalion because they fought with a fury and abandon that distinguished them from their peers. Many of these soldiers said that they would rather die than return home with any suspicion that they didn't give their best in defense of America, because to do so would be the ultimate dishonor. Many of their parents had sent them into battle with these words: "Live if you can, die if you must, but always, always fight with honor." Even before I came to the AG's office, I've always led my legal teams and business teams with this tenet: we must win the right way. Now, believe me, I really want to win every time, whether it's a business deal, a legal case, or an election. But in my mind, and now in the AG's office, how we win is more important than if we win. We work our hardest, but we would rather lose a case or an election doing things the right way than by lying, cheating, or any other dishonorable method. The monument for my Japanese heritage that has most shaped me is honor. True leaders must prize honor among their most precious virtues. Not honor in a hollow, superficial way, but honor born out of integrity, honesty, hard work, and mindfulness of how your influence affects others. So let me say this in closing. To be sure, intellect and ambition, appearance and eloquence are all important leadership qualities, as are many others that we haven't addressed, that I haven't talked about today. But TED challenges us to challenge ourselves, to challenge our paradigms and be innovative. TED itself is a monument to innovation and advancement. So the monuments that I've shared today and the leadership principles they embody, they're not new. But I hope my message is disruptive enough by reminding us of the values of these timeless leadership characteristics, especially when leadership today is too often measured without them. As you shape your own leadership legacies, may your victories, your health, success, and fulfillment be absolutely monumental. Thank you.